The next chart is where we develop the model, positive Islamic psychology model. All right, you can see that. It's on the cover of the book. As we live on this earth, we can go on to that. You can see that. Next slide. Okay, you have this model. All right, this model tells us that we have in our life, we are influenced by 3 environmental sources. As we lead in life, we are affected by, first, our environment. That means we live in a slum, we have a lot of bad companies, we are poor, we are hungry. So naturally, we have a lot of problems there in terms of abuse, in terms of being drug addicts and so on. That is part of the slum culture. All right, environment. We don't have enough food. We can cause our nutrition level to go down. We'll be stunted in life and so on. That's the environment, physical environment. Okay. The second one is social and interpersonal environment. That means the company we keep, the society that we are in, and so on. So it affects our perception. All right. So what is important is for us to be able to use our inner speech. This is where Professor Muhammad Mahdi Jenkins, he was a professor of clinical psychology. He was a professor of behavior psychology. He was a protege of B.F. Skinner. You study psychology, you know who is B.F. Skinner, right? The father of modern behavior psychology. Professor Mahdi Jenkins, those days his name was John Jenkins. He was a protege. He was working with B.F. Skinner in the same lab. He was his student. And B.F. Skinner would always point him to be his successor. But in B.F. Skinner model, there's only 2. The physical environment, social environment. There's no inner speech. So, while doing experiment with the animal model, Professor Mahdi, John Jenkins at that time says, cannot be. We have inner speech. So he began to create this model and explain it to B.F. Skinner. B.F. Skinner accepted his idea, but he could not elaborate on that. But he feels sad because his model of behaviorism is debunked by his own student. You know, that is the whole idea of scholarship. Huh? So we have inner speech. And how we utilize this inner speech to actually transform ourselves, we can actually overcome our social problems and our environmental issues. That means if we come up from even from the worst of the slum, and we are grown up with the worst of the gangsters, but if we use our inner speech, we can actually override these 2 other influences. And that is a very powerful tool. So that's why we use this model, that the perception of every human being is such that they can be positive because they start with fitrah. They start at the base where they are good. They didn't start at the lower level. In the Christian theology, we start as sinners. That means we start somewhere down. In the Islamic theology, we are fitrah. We are good. And Allah has created us for goodness. Okay? So when we do that, we can understand that we then influence our 4 realms, the spiritual, emotional, mental, and physical self. And based on that model, we can then become a positive human being, contributing to ourselves, our family, and this world, and this universe. Because in that exchange of energy, everything that you do transcends not only the physical world, but also the spiritual world. These are discussed in very great detail by Islamic scholars in the past. But as I said, these are depth of scholarship that we, modern Muslims, must try to recollect back. 1,000 years ago, we have all our scholars writing books and elaborating on various aspects of human, societal, social, civilizational, you name it. They are always in continuous improvement to make this world a better place. And they are always very open-minded. That means they have scholars interacting in Baghdad or in Andalusia. You have scholars sitting down. They could be Muslim scholars sitting down with Christian scholars, sitting down with Jewish scholars, sitting down with Zoroastrian. They are together in terms of scholarship, and we exchange ideas. And those who sat in that circle finally become Muslims. A lot of them became Muslims. Why? Because the Muslims have a better, more accurate worldview of existence, the existential question, who we are. We have the best and the most positive idea of how to lead life. That's why our principle, the third principle of this book is on being the Caliph of Allah. How are we going to exercise this gift of Caliphhood, this gift of vicegerency, to make ourselves good, to help others to be good, to make the world good. And we repeat that, we fill it up in our hearts. And most important is for us to actually start with young children. That's why the Khalifa method, our school, we have our Khalifa model school, primary school and secondary, we start infusing them at school. But parents, if you want to learn how to go about with it, we have this booklet called Shaping Excellent Character for Parents, how to shape your child, so that you don't need to use rotan. Your child will become little angels. You like it or not? Can be done. Why? Using the principles of shaping. Alright? So basically, inshallah, if you learn this kind of method, you will be able to then develop a better worldview, first for yourself. Because we are all here on this earth for a very short period. How long shall we live? Some of us will live for 60, 70, 70, 80. Very few to 90. Very, very, very few to 100. So, what is 100 years? 100 years is 365 days times 100. How much is that? 36,000 days only. Very little. What is 10 years? 365 years, 365 days times 10 years, how many? 3,650 days only. You see how short your life is? From that perspective, it's very short. Nothing. But the glorious hereafter that Allah has ordained upon the spiritual self is going to go on forever in a plane beyond space, beyond time. Okay? So once you understand that, then we can go to this idea of how got to find solution. We have to find solution for research in terms of addiction. So I have a little mind map. So for those of you who want to do your master's project and so on, you have some tips here how to go about with it. Alright? But it's just a little mind map for us to think about how it is for the future. So we have types of addiction. Alright? We have addiction, drug addiction, alcohol addiction, pornography, video game, social media, handphone, etc. Alright? Especially handphone, you'll be surprised. I always frequent my mosque in my area, Masjid Margiyah. I'm always there. Then we encourage children to come, and each of the children will have their handphone. 5 years ago, all the children will come and play, run around. But today, so you have 50 children all glued to the handphone. My God! And then you see, you go to the, you go to the universities or the college. What happened? They'll be walking with their handphone like that. You can see here, that's addiction. Alright? What about those who spend 4 hours on Bollywood? Or 6 hours on Korea melodrama? Yes. That, because addiction is a form of escapism. So basically, how are we going to overcome addiction? Pathways. For example, if you go to the next level, all these addictions begin with the age of first use. Age of first use. So if we introduce handphones to our 3-year-old kid, then our teenager will be handphone junkies. Alright, they're going to be so addicted to it that they cannot escape it. Alright, so most important is basically from the age of first use, you can see the arrow there, continue use. If there's no intervention, then they will continue, and then the whole addictive process take off to the next level. There is tolerance, then dependence, and then finally total addiction. Okay, so how are we going to overcome this? Because people who are addicted could be involved in many things like, early childhood trauma, life stresses, failures in life, mental illnesses, genetics, and how as Muslims, using positive Islamic psychology, how we're going to influence the SEMP, spiritual, emotional, mental influences, to integrate with whatever modern approach we have, whether it's CBT, cognitive behavior therapy, or DBT, dialectical behavior therapy, or whatever other therapies that we have, how we going to use the basic concept that I have outlined to you in terms of positive psychology for us to actually then moderate the worldview to become more holistic. Okay? So, how are we going to do that? The PIP research could be in terms of protocol, domains, and so on, because positive Islamic psychology, unfortunately, this is the first book in the world on positive Islamic psychology. Very sad. We have 1.7 billion Muslims. This is the first book in positive Islamic psychology. It's not a perfect book, it's just an attempt. I'm not even a psychologist, but since this is an amana, I'm trying to do it, whatever we can do, and spread this message. Then you all from the future scholars, future leaders, from the universities, work on it. Then you may find a lot of ideas that I wrote here which is not good. Then you say, okay, then you write another book. Refutation of positive Islamic psychology. Alhamdulillah, that's good. Then I'll write another book. And we have a good debate, and we get on with it and we get better and better. Alright, that's the whole idea. That's the whole idea of being a good Muslim. That's the whole idea of scholarship. That's the whole idea of ulil albab. To be people who are always thinking, not human beings trapped into little silos of frustration. Some trapped in alcohol addiction, some trapped in drugs addiction, a lot trapped in social media, a lot more trapped in melodrama. Bollywood. You go to India, Muslims, I'm not talking about Hindu homes, Muslim homes, the home is only about maybe 10 feet by 20 feet. That is a home. But they have a big TV there, and all of them, father, mother, children, glued, stone to, and they were laughing, and then tomorrow they go back, pick up all the rubbish and try to survive. So it is a numbing effect of trying to bring these people to escape the difficulties of the world. That is addiction. There are many, many forms. Alright? So we have to find a way in which we can have a more balanced outlook, and this is one of the models that is being presented. And we need a lot of research to be done. So how are we going to treat addicts? Because you see, if we look at our brain chemistry, our brain chemistry in terms of addiction, we have hormones and neurotransmitters. We have serotonin, we have dopamine, we have glutamate, we have GABA, we have endorphins, we have noradrenaline. So all this actually affects our brain chemistry. Just like our body needs to be functioning, our hearts must be functioning, our kidney must be functioning, our lungs must be functioning, every organ must be functioning to get a balance in terms of holistic health, physical health. The same thing, our brain also needs a balance of hormones and neurotransmitters. It's always affecting us. So, if, for example, we have serotonin, it can be produced by our body, but it also can be produced by reflection. For example, if you reflect, you sit down and you look at the sky, or you look at the mountains, you feel calm or not? You feel good or not? That is serotonin acting on your brain. That is a neurotransmitter. At that point, it is being produced naturally. So, ourself, at the spiritual, emotional, mental level, can then be retuned. And the beautiful thing about our thought processes is that you need not be in that place. If you close your eyes and reflect and think about a beautiful place that you have been before, exactly the same feeling will come. Alright? Exactly the same feeling will come. If you don't believe, okay, I just do a simple game. Alright? Just do a simple game. Just close your eyes, just like that. 1 minute only. Close your eyes a bit, just close. Don't worry about the breathing and all that. Okay, close your eyes 1 minute. Okay, I want you to see a lemon in front of you. See a lemon. Alright, now I see you cut the lemon, alright? And then take 1 drop or 2 drops of the lemon on your tongue. See what happened. Now open your eyes. What happened to your saliva? Saliva, right? You have saliva. Where does saliva come from? It comes from the neurotransmitter that is transmitted to your brain. It gives you the hormone, gives you the neurotransmitter, and then the cycle takes place and say, okay, this is a lemon. Ooh. Yes. So you see, so you can actually recreate in your inner speech many positive record. But your inner speech now is having a lot of negative record. Orang kata rekod buruk, pusing-pusing itu, pusing-pusing itu, pusing-pusing. That is addiction. That's why we have people with obsessive compulsive behavior. The same broken record is being played in their conscious and subconscious mind. But how to overcome it? There are ways in Islam. For example, that we can actually gradually get rid of it. So I believe, and inshallah we believe, that if we do a lot of research in terms of the spiritual, emotional and mental influence in terms of our hormones and neurotransmitters, integrating the spiritual, emotional and mental capability that Allah has given us, we can come up with a far better solution to overcome the problem of addiction for the Muslims and for humanity at large. Okay, so this is just an intro of how we can then move on to be able to understand that basically if we can frame our inner speech, remember, with positive thoughts. It's not something that you do it automatically, but it can be automatic. It can be automatic all the time. When you do it 1,000,000 times, it becomes you. That's why Imam Al-Ghazali and Ibn Qayyim, they have said, Ibn Qayyim says, if you want to have positive inner speech, it is like you in a millstone, you put some wheat into the millstone and you get what? Wheat. But if you put in your millstone, you put stones, what do you get? Rubbish. So what you put into your conscious and subconscious mind, what you put into your millstone must be the right ingredient. And Al-Ghazali in Ihya, he says, if you want to have a good character, you begin to imagine that you have the good character even when you do not have it. Start imagining that you're going to be good. Start imagining that you're going to be good. You're going to do some good things, even though you have not done it. Just practice of trying to be good itself will then direct you to become good. And inshallah, that attribute that you want to be part of you will then grow in you and then you become good. You see, so simple. This is the whole idea of shaping process. This is the whole idea of subconscious programming. Today you have these people, all these great scholars say, all the so-called motivational guru and all that kind of thing and make tons of money, talking exactly the same thing. But they do not have a basis. Alright? They do not have a basis. They have only just some sort of framework. But in Islam, we have the basis and we have the framework. Okay? So we have the basis, we have the framework. So how are we going to use this basis and framework? This is where we have to do a lot of research and studies. So for example, like in the Khalifa Education Foundation, we are working very hard in our primary school, secondary school to spread this idea of Khalifa method. What is Khalifa method? To imbue in the mind of our children. We start with children because if you want to talk about the next generation, it's about the children, right? When you be in the mind of our children, alright, how they can become wonderful children. Alright? And how they can become good and how they can actually generate or develop a good family. But naturally the father and mother must play a role, because how can a child learn about good values if the father is smoking in front of the TV? Smoking like that. And then the son and daughter looking around. You tak boleh, ni orang dewasa je. Can you have that? There's cognitive dissonance. You are setting a bad example and you say you cannot do it. The child will say, hey, it's good, my father is doing it, I should be doing it also. So he go to the toilet, take a cigarette and smoke. A lot of them, that's their first experience in smoking because they saw their father doing that. So basically, we have to start with the younger generation. Okay, so that's why we have the Khalifah method, and then we have this whole idea of the framework of post-Islamic psychology to actually frame our way of thinking. What is important is for us to know that whatever that we do, always start small. Do something small. Don't try to do something big, and then you progress it along the way. Alright, so there are many interventions that we can discuss, but inshallah, if we are able to develop better framework in terms of Khalifah method, that will be one method that we are trying to develop training, and then we are also trying to train as many young people as possible in our program. You have the brochures up there, pass to your friends. Alright, we have this positive Islamic psychology practitioner program for young people. Normal price is 500 ringgit for unemployed graduate, underemployed graduate, master student and so on is 350 ringgit. 2-day retreat with us, with our panel, consultants, to train you in terms how you can become a certified practitioner. So once you become a certified practitioner, inshallah, you can then give talks to primary schools, to parents, small groups, go to PPRT. You know PPRT, we have a lot of the poor people there, the children are drug addicts. You know the one that, those group of boys that got killed in Johor, they were cycling at 3 a.m. They are from the PPRT flats. You know? So how we can influence them to become better? And we do small projects. You don't think about changing the world, yes, inshallah. But if each and every one of us do a little thing, then it becomes big. Okay, so we have this program in May, 20th and 21st of May, in somewhere in Bukit Tinggi Resort. Okay, 380 ringgit. You get food, you got place to stay, and you have, inshallah, this book free given to you. All right, as part of our da'wah. All right, this is where we start working on it. And pass on, take as many brochures as possible. Pass on to your friends, so that inshallah we can help spread the positive message of Islam. The question is now, why now? Alright, this we have to divest a little bit from the psychological context. It is more of the socio-political context. The image of Islam today is very, very bad. Why? Because for the last 200 years, the whole Islamic movement has been directed to the wrong track. There are many tracks. We are not condemning any Islamic movement and so on, but we have gone to the wrong track. The last 200 years, Muslim countries are trying to free ourselves from the bondage of colonization. We were colonized. Malaysia was colonized by the British, Pakistan, Somalia, you name it, the great colonial powers, Philippines by America, the whole of Latin America by the Spanish and the Portuguese. So we Muslim countries are trying to free ourselves from the bondage of colonization. So our frame in terms of Islam at that point was suitable. That is confrontational mode of Islam. That means we confront the colonial. But that confrontational mode has become part of the worldview of the Muslims today. We are no more colonized. We are free agent, but because of that, we tend to see the world as our enemy. We cannot. Why? Because the world is 7 billion people. We are living in a small global village now. As I told you, this earth is not the size of one atom. Nothing much to fight about. Whether it's resources or what. Yes, people will be fighting for timber, people fighting for gold, people will be fighting for oil. These are the small-minded people. We should not be like them. Yes, we will face a lot of challenges to correct this worldview. But there are a lot of thinking non-Muslims who are having the same worldview also, because they know we are cutting all the forests. What happened? Climate change, sea level rising, polar ice depleting. They estimated if this continue, maybe in 50 to 80 years, there will be no more water in the river Ganges, because the Himalaya will not have enough snow to have the water flowing throughout the whole year. Certain part of the year, they will be dry. You know how many people is dependent on river Ganges and the Mekong River Delta and so on? More than half a billion people is dependent on that. Why? Climate change. Why climate change? You know that, all the science, CO2 level, cutting of forests and so on. So we know that actually this so-called intellectual generation of human beings, this civilization, this 21st century civilization, actually is just a front for a few rich people, for a few powerful people to con all of us. We are all caught. We are all part of the game. But we have to change that. That means we, as citizens of the world, must try to change. That means we cannot continue cutting all the forests. We cannot continue destroying the environment, because finally it's going to destroy ourselves. All right, now it's already happening on a yearly basis. 50 years from now, only God knows. Wallahu alam. Some scientists have predicted maybe 100 years from now there will be a runaway climate change that will destroy 3 billion human beings. That means half of human population will be gone. All right? So we are in real crisis from the point of view of just the physical world itself. We're not talking about the emotional, mental, and spiritual aspect of our existence. We're talking about this physical world itself. We are on the path towards self-destruction. So inshallah, we must play a role. That means, as Muslims, you have two choices. Rasulullah tells us, when the day of judgment comes and you're holding a seedling, what did he say? Plant it. Rasulullah didn't say, when the last day comes, you go back to your house and pray. No. What did Rasulullah say? When the last day comes and you have a seedling in your hand, plant it. That means we Muslims must be the agent of change, because we have the most beautiful way of life that can be good for everybody. Oh, they say, what is so good about Islam? Or what's so good about Muslim way of life? It's so restricted. No. That restrictive way is basically a misinterpretation of Islam. Islam is very open. Grounded in what? In a good life based on knowledge, not based on wastage, not based on melodrama. It's based on our ibadah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and our realization as being the Caliph of Allah on this earth, and striving to make ourselves good and helping others to be good and make the world good. So what is important for us now? We must have a new worldview, and inshallah, I hope all of you can understand that we must have a new worldview of Islam, a positive worldview of Islam, what? Based on peace, happiness and success. So we always strive to do what is good for ourselves, what is good for the Ummah and all humanity, and what is good for our planet Earth. And always we think that way. And slowly we'll pass on this positive message, which is Islam. Even if I say positive, somebody asks me, you mean there's such thing as negative in Islam? There's nothing negative in Islam, but unfortunately we've been practicing a lot of negative things. I have to title the book Positive Islamic Psychology. Sad. What to do? We have no choice. Alright? But this is just to shock you, to think there's nothing negative in Islam. Islam is so beautiful, so perfect. If you understand the depth of this deen, mashallah, it's so wonderful. If you understand how our scholars, struggle to bring this deen, how they struggle on camelback to write 200 books like Imam Ghazali, imagine who we are. Nothing. So we have to bring that tradition, that beautiful way of life, that balanced way of life, that is happy first. Happy. Islam must be happy. You see a lot of Muslims today walking around like what? As if they're going to die tomorrow. The Prophet is all the time smiling. Alright? We teach our children. We use the cane. The Prophet never caned any child. Even the naughty ones that was knocking at the date tree to get the fruits, throwing stone, and then the Prophet ruffled his head. Hey, you think what is there? Okay, and ruffled his head and give a dua for him. Imagine. There's so many of the very basic sunnah that we are not following, but we talk about small things, So, inshallah, if we can together work out and find a way, inshallah, we will be able to do something good and positive, and inshallah, help to overcome addiction problem, because this is a global problem, not only the Muslim problem. Addiction, as I see, so many addiction now. My worry is more of the social media and handphone addiction, which is, I think, is going to be very, very bad if we are not careful, and it's already affecting us. All right? Even now, if I go to the mosque, I can see some of our brothers with the handphone Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Just before the Imam going to say Allahu Akbar, take out the hand. And I say, my God, even you want to remember Allah, you must remember your Facebook or your WhatsApp. This is bad. So you're not talking about young people, you're talking people who's going to die, okay? 60 years old. And above. This is terrible. Alright? So, inshallah, if we know what disaster we are heading to, and we all work together in our small ways. Remember, always starting what? First, make yourself, strive, inshallah, to make ourselves, repeat after me, strive, inshallah, to make ourselves good, to help others to be good, and to make the world good, as the Caliph of Allah said. So thank you very much. Inshallah, if there is any question, we can answer. And then after that, I have some more question and answer after your short break later on. But for now, I think I have given you some basic idea. If you have any question now or later, we can talk. Shall we stop now? And then?
Thank you so much, sir. Maybe we can have our Q&A session after the break.
Okay.
And so we would like to, but sir, we can take a few questions right now, though. Like we can have 10 minutes. And then we will again ask you, because the thing is, you're such a knowledgeable